Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over some translated interviews coming from some Japanese media sites. We always love when these come because there's always a ton of information in them, or at least a ton of opinions or insights into the way things are done or will be in the future. Now, we of course have to thank Carrier of Light, who we've covered a ton of their translations from Reddit in a ton of other videos, so please go to the description of this YouTube video, go over there, share your thanks with them, Reddit Karma, whatever it is you can do to show appreciation, because they do a ton of great work, and we've made so many videos on them that I feel like it's deserved. Now with this, as I said, there are 4 Japanese media sites, and Carrier of Light has brought them all together, put them into a concise TLDR format for different topics. And if you would like to see the interviews translated in full, then they do also include a link in the bottom part of this post, which will take you to their Discord where it's translated in full. But we're going to be focusing on the footnotes, the Cliff Notes version, I suppose, of these interviews. So starting off with the story, this is pretty straightforward stuff, just letting us know, how the importance of the story coming up, the scale of it. Think of 5.2 and 5.3 as part 1 and part 2 of the finale of the Shadowbringers story, and then 5.4 and 5.5 will lead us into 6.0. Starting with 5.2, the story will step right into the core of the story. Well, that's good to know that we're finally getting there. I felt like we were there already, but no, we're finally getting there. Ishgard Restoration, the concept of this content is having real-time live events. If they're asked, are all players guaranteed to participate? They have to say there will be cases where that won't be the case. Basically saying that those concerted efforts will still be happening on those timers. So if you're asleep or at work and you miss one, so be it. That's just the way that it's going to be. With the new step in the restoration, their goal isn't to have everyone hold hands to cross the finish line. Instead, they want to reward the hard workers, which will naturally lead to restoring the area faster. I agree with that. I mean, that seems like that's just a no-brainer to me, but the way that it actually is executed upon, the whole titles thing from the competitive every 10-day markers, just giving the titles is still kind of I wish they could bump that reward up a little bit more. Not that I'll ever get one, but still. They admit that it was their fault for not expecting so much congestion during the previous step. Okay, good to know that. Those who contributed can participate. The fates will begin roughly around 30 minutes after the restoration gauge is full. Before, you had to wait 2 hours. So it's a shorter wait this time around. As soon as you find out that it's full on your server, you've got about half an hour to get there and wait. In comparison to the prologue stages they implemented in 5.1, there are way more stages this time, and even if you can't participate in all of them, you should be able to participate in a lot of them. I really am curious the scale, because I think, what was it, 3 of them, I think, last time? So what's more? What is more? There 5 this time? 6? 10? So we'll see how much credence that individual comment actually holds and how many steps there actually are. The Ishgard Restoration ranking system will be in 5.21, which is 3 weeks after 5.2. Okay, we knew that already. Evaluation of the rankings will be based on the level and quality of the item you hand in, but the key will be the mass and amount after all. Alright, that's kind of expected. Restoration won't end in 5.21 and will continue in future patches. That we also expected. And fishers will be able to participate from this stage onward. No more being left out. Congratulations, fishermen. Disciple of Hand and Land and Expert Recipes. Expert Recipes will be for those who have organized properly over melded gear. So basically, if you're one of those hyper melded super endgame crafters, that's what Expert Recipes are designed for. They're not designed for the person who just got to 80 and is like, this looks cool. No. You got a ways to go before you get to Expert Recipes. During these crafts, almost every turn will have some sort of happening or situation you need to react to and choose the appropriate action for that scene, and that will be important. Yeah, that's in line with what they told us before. Macros won't be useful. I feel like some people are really happy to hear that, and some people are equally as depressed. But it'll be a new learning process, and I think that's good for the crafting scene. The real question will be the value of these expert recipes. They prepared a skill simulator. We went over that in the patch note video, and we've gone over it several times before with the live letters. That way you can kind of see what skills you're using and how they're going to be affecting the actual outcome. Adding expert recipes to the game doesn't mean crafted gear for battle classes will be created using these recipes. I didn't expect them to require expert recipes. They seemed pretty set that would mostly have to do with Ishgard related stuff, and they reinforced that down here. So that really shouldn't have been a point of confusion, but I'm glad they're going out of their way to clarify. Expert recipes will involve crafting items that contribute to restoration. People aiming for top spots on ranking boards should challenge these recipes. The difficulty of the 5.2 crafted gear is the same as usual. So, easy. And once the new macro comes out for these, you should be good. Skysteel tools, these are the crafting and gathering relics. I might actually make one of these. The content itself will be pretty simple. It won't ask you to do much. Just, go. It won't ask you to go there and now go all the way over there. Enhance your tools by handing in the base weapon and items required. Very simple. Introduce the gaining the base tool and 2 steps to upgrade for that base tool. The tools will be somewhat useful, but they will not exceed fully pentamelded tools right away. When the final patch arrives, meaning way down the line before 6.0, that's when they'll probably be better than fully pentamelded tools, but by then it doesn't really matter. So you think of this more as an alternative if you're someone who doesn't plan to do full pentamelds, but you'd like to earn something, or you'd like to work towards something that's still good for your crafters. That's the best way to look at it. Moving on to the Relic. Now, I had read the interview. I read specifically the Dengeki interview before reading through this compiled translations Carrier of Light has put out. So the content will be updated in 0.35, 0.45, and 0.55. I expected that. 0.25 will focus on the tragedy at Bajra Citadel. They prepared a very dense and long story as an introduction. We see a lot of stuff that looks like it deals with this story in the patch trailer. And I've never been excited for the Relic Quest storyline. I'm always intrigued, but I'm genuinely ecstatic for this introduction story-wise. There will be situations where you do need to fight, but you can basically solo most of the story. After you finish the story, you will be given the base weapon. Once you clear it, you won't find much trouble gaining additional weapons for other jobs. So if you want all the base weapons and you completed it the first time, it's reasonable that you might complete all the base weapons at the very least. So that kind of reminds me of Onimos. Onimos took me like 15, 20 hours to get the first weapon, and then it was like 5 hours for every weapon after that. So it kind of reminds me of that, but not quite to the same degree. I don't know if it'll even take that long to get these weapons, multiple of these weapons, but we'll see. The weapons should go in the end, but not right away. It's just going to be the base weapons here the first time around. With regards to the first step, you should be able to solo through the majority of it. And they keep saying the majority because there's one thing you probably won't be able to solo in it. I think we know what that is. In 5.35, they'll be adding a new field type of content they haven't had in the game before. They will be organizing 2 routes for the Save the Queen Relic quest. One is using the new field type content to enhance your weapon, and the other is gathering and collecting items to enhance your weapon and other content. So I have read through the interview myself, and I'm going to add a little bit of elaboration for this. In Eureka, the Forbidden Land, you had to progress through both Eureka's story and the Relic weapon to get to future steps of Eureka. So you had to do both of those things in tandem, or you couldn't participate in either of the pieces of content that were involved there. In this one, after you do that initial base quest and you move on to the 0.35 step, you'll have to do a little bit of story to be able to upgrade the weapon further, but as soon as you get to the point where it's upgradable, you have a choice. You can go do it in the new exploration style area, or you can do it like you did the old relics. You can go run roulettes, maybe buy items with tomestones or earn them through specific activities. So you're not going to be forced to go through exploration content if it's not something that interests you. So that's the big thing that they're going to be striving for, even as they continue to update it in 0.35, 4.5, and 5.5. They do have plans for adding something like the Baldesion Arsenal, and the game experience will change for each update. Now that's interesting to me, because that implies we are getting more than a single public dungeon, as they were called with Baldesion Arsenal. I'm a huge fan of Baldesion Arsenal. I was a member of the group that got World First, and it was genuinely one of the most fun experiences I had, but the barrier for entry was massive, and so many people had to look at Pagos and Pyros and Hydatos and all the way back to Onimos and go, do I want to do it that bad? And I'm hoping that the accessibility goes way up with this one, because I think that this is something that people should try to enjoy, but the barrier for entry just can't be there, or people just won't even give it a shot. Now, as for armor, we've been wondering about this because it said upgradable equipment, but for armor, you'll be able to obtain it, but it's not so much that it's enhanceable. It sounds like it's very similar to the way that it worked in Eureka, where like Onimos, you know, you enhance like the weathered gear, like your OG AF gear for the beginning of the expansion, and then you like obtain brand new gear in like the later elements of it. It sounds like that to me, as opposed to like actual relic armor. So I just hope it's cool, because we're going to be in the Hrothgar homeland for these exploration areas. Bajra is an area that is in Ilsabard, where the Hrothgar literally are trying to, you know, deal with their, trying to remove the Garleans from occupying their homeland. And I'm wondering if that means it's more Garlean themed, if it's more Hrothgar themed. But this should be thrilling. I'm genuinely thrilled to get started with these relic quests and see what they've done for the story of these, because this is a much more involved story than I guess I had. And Matsuno is writing it. I gotta know. I gotta know. Ruby Weapon series might introduce other weapons. They're calling it the Weapon series internally, so please look forward to Emerald. And probably, I'm gonna guess it's Ruby, Emerald, Diamond in that order. I know people would think Emerald might be last. I'm gonna be the contrarian here and assume Emerald would be in 5.4. That's gonna be my guess. Ruby Weapon is a little harder than other Extreme Primals. That doesn't say a whole lot. I do wonder if they're comparing it to Hades, though, because I assume they mean Innocence and Titania, which I expect it to be a little harder. But if it's harder compared to Hades, that would actually be interesting. I just don't think that's the case, because Hades isn't considered an EX Primal. He's considered a Minstrel's Ballad. They have quite a lot of new mechanics. The new type of player might have an easy time clearing it. He doesn't mean new player. New type refers to extremely skilled pilot with abnormal human abilities in the robot anime Gundam and their ability to... Alright, that's way over my head at that point. That's anime talk right there. I'm not proficient in that at all. You'll be able to fight comfortably if you can imagine and envision where the AoE indicators will move to next. Yeah, that usually helps to be able to see the future. You know, just ask Epic of Alexander. The first phase and second phase are entirely different, and the arena will also look different. I think he's going to super grow, like into the giant Ruby Weapon we remember. It's been a while since they couldn't clear the content on their first try during tests. So I'm curious about that, because I'm assuming that means they know all the mechanics, they've seen them all, and that when they go to test it internally, you know, being the people making it, they usually just beat it, right? Because they know how to do it. And they're implying here that that didn't happen with Ruby Weapon, that they didn't beat it internally on their first try like they normally do. So that's interesting. I don't think it really means much for us. I think we always see statements like that and like overestimate like how they're talking about it. Never forget the fabled between second and final coil difficulties. So we'll be the judges of all of these statements. The rewards will be weapons. Now here's something that's interesting. So just prior to this, we went over the patch notes, the preliminary patch notes, and there's no mention of this there at all. The full interview stated that Ruby Weapon will grant 2 totems because the fight and cutscenes are long. That is not mentioned anywhere in the patch notes, and I have to go back and look at the Hades one, which I'm almost positive said it granted 2 totems, and this one doesn't. So I wonder if this interview was maybe done before, like way before, like maybe like weeks before, and then in those weeks they decided maybe it's only worth 1. I don't know. That, you know, if it's worth 2, great, because I love either rewarding 2 of these or cutting the cost in half, either or. I'm okay with this. It's an adjustment that I accept. Eden's vs. Savage. In the previous Eden's Gate raids, they reduced the required damage by about 15%, but they didn't do that this time, so it will be simply harder. This is very similar to what they said going from Deltascape to Sigmascape. I don't think they said 15%. I don't think they gave us a number, but they basically said that the first tier, they lower the DPS checks because it's... because people are newer to the game and they want them to be able to beat it reasonably. But 15%, when I think of Titan at minimum item level, if he had 15% more health, he wouldn't be he'd be gear locked, I'm pretty sure, on the first week. So regardless of skill, I don't know if that's applying to all the fights. That might apply to the first couple of fights, which you pretty much skip major mechanics in, like in week 2 or 3 or something like that. But I don't want to imagine the 4th fight being having 15% more health, because that starts to sound like it's at risk of gear locking for the first week, and you know, that's people got lives to get back to, okay, when we're doing the crazy schedule. So you know, I don't know, we'll see where that we'll see how that statement holds out. Now, the first floor will be Ramu. Now, we went over this in the patch note video already. First floor will be Ramu. It's Fulmination. The second floor will be against Ifrit and Garuda in one fight. That's the Führer fight. The third fight will differ a little. That's the Iconoclasm fight, which is against the idol that we saw in the trailer. And the fourth fight is completely a secret, but the title for the encounter is Refulgence. People are taking the German name, which Esterung, which can mean freezing or solidification, and taking that it might be Shiva, but with the reward name being the Blade of like Golden Antiquity, which usually implies some sort of, I guess, relevance to the overall structure of the encounter. Refulgence is either a light base boss or Shiva. I'm kind of 50-50 torn because I want it to be Shiva, but I think it's very likely like a super light scent or something like that, or I'm sorry, a super Sin Eater. The fourth floor will be the fanciest effects and performance out of them all. That's normal. Ocean fishing, you can join at level 1, and this is just an outright explanation of ocean fishing. This is literally like almost verbatim what's available in the patch notes, all the information that's available in the patch notes, and you know, there's even some that is in the patch notes that isn't here. But they say here future plans for events such as trying to catch one huge fish with everyone on board and other new fun content for fishers. I'm glad they're kind of trying to take an approach of looking at other content that makes people work together in MMOs that doesn't necessarily have to be large raids. I'm glad we're looking at potentially a ton of Baldesion Arsenal large-scale raids as well. But these kind of things I think are appreciated. These create fun community events for dedicated players. So I'm glad to see they are focusing on trying to make more activities and not just release this and dump it to the side. They do have plans. So this was kind of interesting because the translation almost outright says no deep dungeon, whereas this Carrier of Light's translation, which is far more authentic than, you know, right-click translate to English on Google, this says that they do have plans for a deep dungeon, but they might not do one because they're doing so many other things with the resources. Whereas when I read it and did right-click Google Translate, it just says straight up it's not happening. So I'm curious if this is just like the more polite way of saying it's probably not happening, whereas I got a very literal translation of it because we all know how great Google Translate is. But I'm personally saying I wouldn't expect a new deep dungeon in this patch. Curious to see how I wonder if they figure trusts maybe fill the void that deep dungeons did, or if they just say, you know what, there's not like a clamor for new deep dungeons, so maybe we should just take a break from them for a while. They're trying to prepare a variety of new content that revolves around lifestyle in 5.3. I remember reading this and wondering how this was going to be. I remember them mentioning like the minion ranch or something that we were supposed to be getting, and I wonder how many features like that are what they're talking about. I think these more MMO focused lifestyle type things that make people want to like have almost like a second life in the game itself, those are usually pretty good for the average player, for the casual player, which makes up a majority of the player base. So it's probably a good idea that they're doing that, even if it means not doing floors 21 to 30 50 times to level a job. Yeah, I'm not going to miss Deep Dungeon outside of solo attempts very much, in case you couldn't tell. Next, Ultimate won't be implemented in 5.3. This is a big topic of discussion because it was still unknown how they were going to approach how many ultimates we were getting. They said it was most likely we got 2 a long time ago, that we got 2 in Shadowbringers, and they said maybe 3, but most likely 2. So we've kind of been expecting 2. And a lot of the people I know, when we've discussed Ultimate, people have said, well, if they're going to only do 2 ultimates, they should do one in 5.1 and 5.5. Because 5.1 is right after the expansion comes out, you know, a few months down, and it's still fresh on people's minds, and it's this really fun and engaging, kind of like a social experience with raiding in Ultimate because of you know, everyone watching on YouTube and Twitch and kind of, you know, talking about it on social media. But then on the flip side, do the second one in 5.5 because it's right before a new expansion is coming out. So people are like, oh yeah, I heard that new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV is coming out. Let me check out what the live streams are doing. And then they tune in and they see that and they're just like, what? It's probably better advertising. BA was still okay for that, but Ultimate being in 5.5, I've had a lot of people who I raid with or are friends with who do Ultimate raids who feel that way about it. But we'll have to see how the new BA style content and the other thing they're making fill in the void for 5.3, because that does not mean 5.3 will not feel very lonely if there is not something there for the hardcore. You can never satisfy us, though. Let's be honest. And then the rest is all the conversations down here. There's a few other interesting things that are mentioned here, talking about 1.0's history and finding out a lot of answers to hidden mysteries in the story. But we're not going to dive too much into this because there is a lot of story-related stuff here. There's all the sources, the full interviews, as well as the translation in full on Carrier of Light's Discord, which is right down here under the text translations channel. So let me know what you think about what we found out here. Are you disappointed in no new deep dungeon? How do you feel about Ultimate, there being 2 of them, and skipping 5.3? Extra Baldesion Arsenal content and the design of Relic. There's plenty of things to comment on, so please do so in the comment section of the YouTube video below. Twitch stream, thank you for being very patient with me as I've recorded some YouTube videos live since I wake up at 5:30 in the morning to get ready for the stream. And with that, I'm going to go back to being a streamer on Twitch instead of a YouTube content creator. So, thank you for watching. I'll see all of you on YouTube in the next one, and until then, take care.